And
Yeah.
then here we go. Here we go. We are live. We are live, friends. It is Jenny Fenig, your host of Coach Magic, back at you today, back with you today for our Luminary series. We have the amazing Amy Reinert with us today, who is a very seasoned chief marketing officer, strategic advisor, and a prolific storyteller. I am thrilled to talk with Amy today. Amy and I first crossed paths through my work with Chief, an incredible organization that I get to do great coaching and facilitation work. Amy and I are both, well, Amy's straight up in Boston. I come to Boston for these special events and dip into the Boston energy. But Amy and I have been at several events together. I've always been taken by your energy, Amy, and what you bring to the table. You're not afraid to speak up, and you are really, really passionate about community building and helping each other out and telling the truth, which is what I always say is my passion when we get women in a room together. It's so exciting and needed to bring incredible women together to tell the truth. So
Right.
welcome
Yeah.
to the show, Amy.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we are going to have a fantastic conversation. And I am so grateful for those of you who are tuning in live to this conversation, or those who will be checking out the replay or listening to us on the podcast. My goal with these conversations is to get the word out to as many people as possible. And for those of you who've been following me for some time, you know that I'm kind of always testing out new technologies and new ways of connecting. And when I had the idea for this Luminary series, that was the kind of extra oomph for me to say, wait, there's these tools out there that allow us to multi-stream. And I just want to play with this because there's no denying that technology has changed our lives. It will continue to change our lives. I'm curious for you, Amy, in your path as a CMO, how did you stay ahead of the technologies? How did you kind of figure out? Sometimes it's just, wait, is that just a passing fad? Do I need to pay attention to it? Do I not? Like, how did you figure that out? And how do you continue to tap into what's worth paying attention to spread a message?
That's an amazing question because the role of the chief marketing officer is becoming so much more technical, right? And when I began my career in marketing, it was print ads and radio spots, and all of those things still play a role in the mix. But the technology piece is something that it is the way we communicate. I often laugh when I hear people talk about digital marketing, right? And how that, just the digital in front of marketing cracks me up, because this is the way we communicate now, right? And it's part of the experience. It's not the whole experience, but often people will experience you before they experience you. So for example, I was in the restaurant business for a long time. And before people walk through the doors of the restaurant, they've probably been to your website. They probably checked you out on social media. They probably, looked at the menu or looked at a few reviews. So all of that has to really be very, very consistent. So you're absolutely right. How did I do it? I don't know. I just rolled with it and, evaluated things as we needed to, and learned a lot. Because the moment you think that you've mastered something or figured something out, especially when it comes to this environment that we're playing on right now, which is really multi-channel, it changes, right? So a tip for you would be to get the meta glasses and wear the meta glasses, because you can literally stream this conversation right to, I think, Instagram. So I'll be curious to see you next time wearing
my glasses, like just
mine are not meta glasses. Mine are regular readers.
Okay, got it. Yeah, what's happening right now? Yeah, it's so true. Consumers today, they do have an experience of a place before they get there. Likely, it's kind of rare that you just show up blind. Like we were just in Charleston, South Carolina. I did a long weekend with my mom and my cousin, and my cousin's a big foodie. Like she doesn't just show up to a restaurant. Like she has done her research. She's asked her friends, where should we go? And then she makes reservations. Then I'm, checking it out, kind of seeing what's the vibe, what's the menu like, that kind of thing. And it's good to know that I say this to my clients all the time. You are responsible for telling your story. It's like, what do you want to have out there about you, in terms of imagery, language, colors, the vibe, the essence? What kind of feeling do you want a potential client to have about you when they encounter you on
Right.
these digital streets? So you, not so long ago, and correct me if I'm wrong, kind of looking at your story, left the in-house, right, corporate or agency life to go out on your own, start your own business. Tell us about that journey. What was that decision like for you to say, hey, it's time to take my show on the road? It's time to,
Yeah, exactly. You
right?
know, and so much of what I do is I don't know, it's led by
Mm-hmm.
or you know, I've now learned to really tap into um, you know, what some people might call intuition or gut or inner voice or just that sense of knowing um, what moves to make and when. And that is what led me to just about a year ago deciding that I did not want to work for anybody else. And at the time, I really didn't have a plan, to be perfectly honest with you. I didn't have a strategy, didn't have a sense of what that looked like. I spent the spring and summer kind of having some time and space and energy to just breathe a little bit, which was incredible. At that time, I started working with a leadership coach who asked me some really interesting questions that led to some incredible insights. And around that time, I decided to not necessarily open a business,
Mm-hmm.
but put my brand, put me out there in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And that really opened up an incredible new self
Mm-hmm.
and led to just some amazing opportunities for me, which have now actually grown into a business.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it and again, I don't think I at the time approached it with much strategy, but it just felt like they were the right steps to take in the right moments, and it turns out to be the case. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm very fortunate that way.
Yeah. So it was that gut instinct, that intuition that just told you, go in this direction. What you said, didn't want to work for anyone else. You didn't necessarily think, I'm going to start this business and build this thing. It was, was what I hear, prioritize me. You worked with a leadership coach and you started really putting you out there, Amy Reinert,
Right.
you, not under somebody else's company, somebody else's brand. It was you. And it seems to me that you've been building your own personal brand, what it is that you stand for by sharing your point of view, your
Right.
unfiltered point of view. You are obviously a communicator. Most people go into marketing are. Some I think are more, because it's funny, I majored in public relations and that I went to University of Florida, and PR was in the College of Journalism and Communications. And
Right.
then marketing and that whole realm was in the College of Business. And I minored in business. So I would kind of be in both places, a huge campus. So like the J school was over here, and then the business school was way on the other side of campus. And it was such a different vibe. It really was. It was
Yeah.
so funny
Yeah.
because we're like the communicator people over here, and we're a bit more artistic. And then you go to the business school, and everyone's in suits. And you know, this was in college, and it was just totally different. It was much more mathematical and you know, measuring and all of that. So I say that with, you know, some marketers are, and that's not bad. It's just very much into the measurement and how does this all add up, and so it takes a really unique kind of a marketer who has a strong sense of words and communications and being able to tell those stories. And so just want to honor you with that. I've seen what you have been doing on LinkedIn and how you've really been, you know, sharing stories and messages that, I don't know, have they been easy for you to share? Have some of them come with like,
No.
oh, wow, I'm about to push publish, what's going to happen?
Yeah, no, I certainly appreciate what you're saying about marketing being an art and a science. And I would say when it comes to what I'm doing right now on LinkedIn, it feels more art than it is science. And you know, as a marketer, if I were to launch any brand, there would be certainly a strategy, a discovery, certain things that we would undergo before launching. And I didn't do any of those things for my own personal brand. And I know there's a whole study behind it, but for me, it literally is what it looks like, which is it feels incredible. As far as the storytelling goes, that happened by accident too. I am not somebody who would have been described in the last 20 years as a storyteller or a writer or an author. I think as a kid, I was a pretty good writer, loved to do a lot of poetry and was recognized for that. But when I got into the business world, I think I started just being very, very careful about what I not only said, but what I put in writing. And, for a long time, I would say, don't write what you can say, don't say what you can gesture, right? Because there's an accountability with words on paper that I wasn't confident enough with, and I didn't want to be accountable later for. So, but I will say, not working for anybody else gives you some freedom to step into some areas where you feel passionate about a certain subject and want to share in a way that your brain might get in the way of if you worked for somebody else, right? So what led me to my first story on LinkedIn was a friend asked me to write a story, something about health, women's health. And I wrote a story about my experience with postpartum depression, which was 23 years ago. And instead of giving it to my friend, she was going to put it in a book. I just felt like I need to put this on LinkedIn. And I don't know why I did that, but I did. Like I did in the moment. I didn't think about it. I wrote it. And 2 seconds later, I hit publish. And it got a lot of attention, which was great. Very validating. But what happened is I started to get DMs from people who read it, and they started sharing their stories or saying, this happened to me too, or this happened to my daughter or my wife. And the mental health aspect of it brought in some people who shared some deeply painful stories in a way that the conversation that we had felt like it had helped people. Either to know that they weren't alone or to now start talking maybe to their friends or their family or whatever. And that felt so good. I can't even tell you. It felt so good. So I just started doing more and more and more of it. And there were some other stories that I told about. A very popular one was called Barefoot, Laid Off, and Pregnant, which was my second pregnancy. Both pregnancies, both decisions and choices to have children greatly impacted my career. And I told those stories. Barefoot, Laid Off, and Pregnant, that story of being laid off while I was pregnant, went viral, by any standard. And again, brought in a lot of people sharing their experiences. And that it really led to me doing more and more and more of that. And some of them are deeply personal. Some of them, once you start sharing, you kind of don't want to stop. And it got to the point where I was like, well, why not talk about plastic surgery? Why not talk about menopause? Why not talk about, the things that men and women deal with in the workplace, things that women deal with in the workplace, right? Like, let's start doing that. And the more honest I became, the more the right people started coming closer. And in some cases, the wrong people decided to take a step back. And that's okay too, right? It doesn't always feel good, but it's ultimately, I want to attract into my life what is good and good for me. So if that being honest becomes a filter, to filter out people who say, you know what, this doesn't feel right for me, or yeah, you're my people. I want more. I want to come closer. Then it's kind of beautiful to see all that happen.
Yes.
So storytelling allowed me to do that.
Yeah. Oh.
I still, to be honest, I still post about marketing things. I still post about, business related things, but the storytelling has a different kind of vibe for me. And it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
It is. It is. And I feel like storytelling is a piece of marketing. It's a piece of business. It's what allows a company to get close to their audience. I mean, you look at, we just had the Super Bowl a few days ago, and the commercials, which is like, the marketing Olympics, it's like the marketing Super Bowl. I don't know. Right?
I have very strong opinions on that. I have very strong opinions on the Super Bowl commercials. It's such a loop. It's such a pattern that we found ourselves, and we're trying to, outdo and outspend and outcreate, and it's just to the point of ridiculousness. And, I do a lot of work in nonprofit. Okay. And I know that, $10,000, $20,000, $1 million, much less $8 million.
Just for the spot.
Yeah, for a 30-second spot at the Super Bowl ad could really, really impact a lot of our communities in a way, so as a marketer, I get it, but I kind of wish we'd all sort of be like, okay, we're in this loop.
Right.
How do we get some perspective here?
Right. I hear you. I hear you. Yeah, it's a lot of money. That being said, there was one commercial which I saw someone in my LinkedIn community saying why she does not like it. I was like, well, that's an interesting point of view. But it was the Nike commercial. It was the first time in decades that they had advertised during the Super Bowl. I want to say it was close to 30 years. And, it was really dedicated to women, women in sports. And it was a powerful storytelling effort. And I just bring that up because I think about the potency of storytelling. That's why I wanted to really look at that in our conversation today, is for our listeners, for them to be able to tap into story as they put their work out there in a bigger way. A lot of my clients in my audience, they do have small businesses. They are coaches, they are consultants, they are wellness professionals, they are accountants, architects, service-based professionals. And there are a lot of people who do quote what they do. There are a lot of coaches, there are a lot of consultants, there are a lot of marketing networks. But what separates you from everybody else is, well, nobody has the stories that you do. Nobody has the stories that you do. Nobody has the life that you do, and nobody can tell the story like you can. And so the more that you get honest with putting yourself out there in the ways that you have, and for you to tell us, hey, yeah, and that has brought some incredible people towards you. And then others have said, I can't do this right now.
Yeah. And like I said, it doesn't feel good.
Right.
But that's okay. It's definitely okay. And the storytelling, I think that, so many people don't realize how unique and special their perspective or their experience is.
That's right.
So that is one thing that holds people back. The other is just being afraid.
Yes.
Being fearful. And, I forgot to bring up one important point about my storytelling when you said, was it scary at first? When I wrote about my experience postpartum depression, I had not really shared all of that with anybody. Certainly my husband was a piece of that story. My daughters know that my first pregnancy was difficult. But the full story that I shared with the world or strangers or anybody who wanted to read it had not been shared with the people who were closest to me.
So the first time they learned of it was reading what you published. Okay. So how did that go?
And that continued to be a trend.
Okay.
Yeah. So that has brought up a lot of interesting things in my closest personal relationships about why that is the case. I was actually, I forget if who I was speaking with and sort of working through this dynamic of why this is the case and why I want to put it on LinkedIn when I haven't shared it with people you would think I had.
Right.
And this person said, it's like you are naked out in the world, but covering up with a robe at home. And I thought that was really interesting. So we've, I've shared probably 60 different stories in my voice about my experience or experiences of people around me. So we've kind of worked through that as a family at this point, because it's been a couple months, but that was a little disruptive.
Right. I can.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it didn't stop me.
And it's almost like this is just the new you. This needed to happen.
Right.
And because you came out from, underneath an organization where you felt like you couldn't say these things or share some of these stories because it just wouldn't go over well or what have you. You felt like you just literally couldn't. And I get it, because I've been there.
Yeah.
This is an essential part of your journey. I believe that we're all here. We have these journeys. We have things that we're meant to learn in this life. And until we learn them, we keep putting ourselves in situations where, okay, here's that lesson again. You're going to learn it this time. So the storytelling piece, so much of it is for our own healing. It's for our own claiming of our power and the willingness to know that some people will be able to receive this and others will not. And what I've learned too, Amy, is that often you don't even know who it's impacting, because not everybody shows up in your DMs. Not everybody says, likes it or comments. I had someone reach out to me recently. I had no idea that my story was impacting her in this way. And she shared with me that she had been sober for a year. And my storytelling around this, typically I share about it throughout the year, but always on my kind of 1 year or my anniversary of my sobriety, I will celebrate it and put it out there. And I had no idea that she was even watching, and that this was something that she was considering. And she said, keep sharing your story. You have no idea who's listening. And so it was that right there. You have no idea who's listening. You have no idea who's listening. And, so much of this is that everyone here is fighting their own battle. I don't care how put together they look on the outside. Something's going on. Something's going on with a family member. Something's going on with their health. Something's going on with at work. You just have no idea. And so we're humans. We need to tell these stories. Certainly in this era that we are in right now, I think stories will save us, because you'll hear, I talk to my dad sometimes like, things are nuts. Things are nuts. And we live in this country like, wow, there's Jenny. He's not a historian by trade, but he is an historian by passion. And he tells me this country has been violent and, has had a very checkered past since the beginning. This is not really that newish. It's just kind of feels new. And then we have technology, so you always know what's going on at any given time. So that does give me some kind of peace, but also, it also is a fire for me to keep doing my work, because we are in a very important time in our history with really deciding how we are showing up as leaders. And so, what are your thoughts about where you're heading? Like, where are you putting stakes in the ground? Where are you excited to do powerful work when you think about, where you've been and what you've learned so far with your storytelling efforts in this kind of a short period of time? As you look ahead, where do you see yourself?
Right. Well, I have some really strong opinions about social media. I think there's a lot of good that can occur. But there's, a lot of misuse of algorithms and manufactured anger and fear and things like that. And so I don't participate in a lot of social media platforms. The only one I do is LinkedIn, because of the ability to create community on LinkedIn and the verifications. It's, to me, a safer platform. There's a once you know what you stand for, there also becomes a responsibility to meet people where they are and move conversations forward in a positive way, right? And we're at such a weird place, in this country in terms of division and seeing the world as a zero-sum game, right? If I win, you lose. Men against women, race against race. To me, that's not how I see the world. I joke that I want to own the hashtag lift up, right? So you'll see me drop that in a lot of places, in different communities where I feel that people are doing that. So my intention and my goal when I write and I tell stories that I feel are powerful from a woman's point of view or women's point of view is to tell it in a way that if women read it, they say she gets it. If men read it, they say she gets it, right? And that to me helps bring an element of we're all humans. We're having a human experience. We're very different in a lot of ways, and I can only tell stories from my perspective as a woman, but I feel a responsibility to do it in a way that brings people together.
Yes.
So that's, and there's so much bait, there's so much bait even on LinkedIn as stories in the news come out and people get fired up about things that we should be fired up about. And I'm fired up about them too, because I know what I stand for. Right. But with that, and when you have a voice and you have, a community that is reading your stuff and curious about what you have to say, given your experience, it comes with a certain responsibility.
Right.
Not to manufacture more fear.
Yes.
And more anger, because it just keeps pushing people further and further apart, whether it's political, male against female, race against race, all the issues. So I'm going to keep doing that. And again, I don't really have a strategy. I just know when I know what it feels like now to, to know when it's the right thing to do. And even if there are voices around me saying, you know what, don't do that. My mother's voice, my husband's voice, my friend's voice, my kid's voice, all that kind of stuff. There's only one I can really listen to. And I know what that sounds like. I know what it feels like in my body when that happens. Yes. And that's how I make decisions. And it's really pushed me into some bold places, which is awesome. Some really scary places. You said discomfort. I kind of live in discomfort like 100% of the time these days. But it's pushing me to do things I wouldn't normally do. So let's say I let's say I do 100 things I wouldn't normally do. And 2 of them turn out to be not the right thing, but 98 did.
Right.
Right. So that's kind of the experience that I'm having. And a lot of it comes from the storytelling and just being more authentic and out there and putting myself out there in ways that I never felt confident enough to do.
Right. Exactly. You're owning your voice. And that's what I'm getting from this. I love the lift up hashtag, this authentic connections when we own that voice. And to your point, you know what you stand for. And I love that you said that. I have a program that I'll be bringing out any minute now called Take a Stand Brand. Years back, I led an event called Take a Stand. And I had a previous program called Power Brand Camp. And it was, I have a background in branding and I am, that term, take a stand, is so, it resonates so much with me. It has for a long time. It's connected to your values. If you don't know what you stand for, you'll fall for anything. It's that line of thinking. And it's really important to know what it is that you stand for. And you'll know then how to organize yourself, what kind of energy to follow and which to say, you know what, to your point. And when you do this, I posted something the other day and I can tell, you can feel people's energy and their response to it. You're like, yeah, old me might have jumped on that, but I have learned, don't feed the trolls. Okay. So I'm just not available I don't have time. I don't have time. I'm not going to go anywhere with that. So I'm going to put myself over here. I think that's an important part of this conversation, because for those of us who might have been raised with, you always got to be really nice and you always got to be, diplomatic and you always I'm not here to be mean spirited. However, I'm not going to engage in back and forth with someone who's just trying to pick a fight. I'm just not interested. And so I think it's important that we really look at where can we make the biggest impact. And that's what I wanted to ask you, because especially women, we have struggled with doing great work and also not hurting ourselves in the process through burning out and saying yes to everything when we literally cannot, but we think there's, enough hours in the day to say yes to every request. It's just impossible. And so what would be your big tip for our listeners on how, you have made the biggest impact without burning out? What can you offer up so that our people can learn from you when they want to make a great impact and not basically burn out and lose themselves in the process?
Right.
Say to them.
Well, so that's, I love the question. I think my perspective today is somebody whose children are, either in college or have graduated college. Mm-hmm. So there's time and space and energy for me in a way that didn't exist when I had kids at home. It just didn't, right? So, if you're somebody who has children at home and you're dealing with all the things, right? I don't have any advice for you. I really don't, because I was there too.
Just hold on for the ride.
It's like, it will get better. It really will. But at this stage, I'm definitely an extrovert. I love being, out with people in real life, having conversations. I spend a lot of time in communities of women, and I get a lot of energy from that. But I will say that, I consider myself an unapologetic advocate for women. Mm-hmm. And when we get together, there's energy, there's shared experience. It's good. We lift each other up. Mm-hmm. But at this stage of life, I'm realizing that that's not, or at this stage or phase, or wherever we are in this world, I feel like it's not enough for women just to talk to women, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. About some of these, mm-hmm. perspectives and experiences. Mm-hmm. So where I feel I can make an impact is sharing that with a broader group, right? In different conversations. When we think about the work world, 90% of CEOs are men, mm-hmm. right? So there's still a lot of work to do there. Yeah. And that's the group I want to be in. That's the group I want to be talking to, right? Not in a way that alienates, not in a way that pushes people further, but I want to be in that room and share my perspective and my experience and the perspectives and experiences of people like me, so that we can all move forward together. So that's that. I don't know what that looks like exactly. Mm-hmm. I have no idea, but that's where I'm going.
That's your vision. Yeah. And you know what? And I can see for everyone tuning in how they can apply that to their own lives. What I'm picking up is get yourself in the right rooms. Get yourself in the right rooms that will move us forward. I say that to my clients all the time. Make sure you're in the right rooms. And sometimes it's not the room you've been in. And that's the uncomfortable feeling, like, I'm going to get myself in this room and I don't know exactly how it's going to go. But do you trust yourself enough to know you'll figure it out? You'll handle it just like you've handled everything else. But that right room, I love where you're going, Amy. I think it's incredibly important, and you're going to take everything that you've learned through all your work experiences, life experiences, human experiences, and you will help move us forward. So thank you so much for being here today and sharing your wisdom.
I am delighted to have this conversation with you because I feel like we're so like-minded in that way. And again, in taking this conversation and sharing it in a broader way, I think both of us are making, an incredible impact. So I really appreciate, the time here.
Yes, absolutely. And your dog has been.
Yeah, she wants some attention too. Here she is. This is my Sadie.
There she is. Hi. Let's see if I could. I have to just swivel. You're probably going to see papers on my desk. Who knows? No, I don't think you see my dog way in the corner.
I do. I do.
That's my corgi. He sleeps. It's the most hilarious scene. Just, when you're kind of in it and you look over there, you go, okay, we lighten up a bit because look at this guy. Wait, what's your dog's name?
Sadie.
Hi, Sadie. Yeah. I got Penny and I've got Winnie over here. They're all part of this combo. Y'all, you make sure you have some great animals in your life, right? It exactly. Just keeps your blood pressure down.
Well, and keeps me moving. She keeps me moving. That's it's her walk, and it's fleeting.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, everybody. Please join me in thanking Amy Reinert for joining us here on Coach Magic. I appreciate all of you tuning in. This is a movement. This is a mission to do what we came here to do. Everybody needs a coach in their life. I am pleased to be one of the guides and supports in your world, and I look forward to when we connect again soon. Be well, everyone, and take good care. All right, Amy, I'm still here. The stream is ending, but